Hello, Abbott's Creek students. I'm Anna Padres.
And I'm Keith Norval.
And we are painters here in Raleigh. And welcome to our studio. This is where we create all of our paintings. So I like to paint animals in nature a lot of the time. So here's a painting that I did. It's a llama, and there's a lot of birds flying in the air. And I like to paint clouds and trees and plants and stuff too. And I like to use a lot of different colors.
So this is one of my paintings. So this is an owl family. So my work, I like to do sort of cartoony, stylized stuff. So this is not quite a super accurate owl, but it's my version of it. So this is an owl family, and I decided I wanted to make them purple.
Alright, so we are here today to talk to you guys about the mural that we're going to be working with you guys on. So let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
So this is a sketch that I did of our idea for the mural, like I talked about in the live meet with you guys. You can see it a little closer here. So it shows the three palettes: the blue palette, the green palette, and the earth tone palette. This is just a rough sketch. When you guys do your animal paintings, it's going to look a lot different. From far away, it'll look like a landscape, and from close up, you will be able to see a lot of different creatures. Okay, so we are going to show you guys some examples of some different North Carolina creatures and plants that you're likely to see in the woods. Feel free to use any of the examples we give you, or if you can come up with some new and different ones on your own. There's literally like hundreds of things you can pick from. Just make sure it's something that you would see in North Carolina. Here we have a beautiful gray wolf. We have wolves and coyotes here in North Carolina. Here is a cougar or a mountain lion. Here we have some wild turkeys. Here's a raccoon. A white-tailed deer. A groundhog. An opossum. Common gray squirrel. A skunk. A flying squirrel. A chipmunk. A bunny rabbit. A box turtle. A blue-tailed skink. A black snake. A copperhead. A swallowtail butterfly. A moth. A black widow spider. A garden spider. A cicada. A titmouse. A chickadee. A nuthatch. A black and white warbler. A brown thrasher. A hermit thrush. A native thistle. Ferns. And mushrooms.
Hey everyone, so I am working on doing a painting using the brown palette. So go ahead and get my paints out. So I got my work area set up, and then I have my paint palette. I'm just using a paper plate. So this is a darker palette. So we have black, a yellow ochre, violet or purple, and then a brown. So the first thing I'll do is I mix up some colors. So you can either use a spoon or a palette knife or your brush to get your colors out. So I'm using this palette knife just so I can get colors out quickly. And then the nice thing about a palette knife, this is like an artist tool, so you can wipe it off in between colors. You don't have to clean your brush, so it speeds things up a little bit. Okay, so for my piece that I'm working on, I will be painting a squirrel. So I'm looking at, I like the pose of this squirrel, but this gray squirrel, this is kind of more like the coloring you would see. So I might sort of do a combination of both of those. So first thing I'll do is just play around and mix some colors up. So I'll do some of this yellow and this brown. Do like a medium brown. And then let's try a little bit of the violet, and I'm gonna get some of this yellow. And then maybe a little bit, let's switch to a smaller brush. Do a little bit of this black, and then some of the violet. And then if I want to make like a nice dark brown, I can take some of this brown and then put a little bit of black. Like a darker brown, and then I think I'll try that same brown with a bit of violet, and let's see what happens. So it's more like a medium purple, purpley brown. Okay. So then at this point, I think I am going to try to sketch this squirrel out. So this time I use this red pencil so you guys can kind of see what I'm actually doing. And let's see, so and then the pose kind of goes this way, and then make sure I have room for a tail. I know it's still kind of hard to see, but once I start filling it in, it'll be easier. And I think I'll make it smiling. There we go. So maybe I'll make the eyes a little bigger so it's like a little more cartoony. And be waving with this hand. Okay, so that looks good. So usually when I'm painting, I tend to do my outlines. So just quickly do an outline of the squirrel. Get my main shapes. And I'll need a little small brush for this. So you can see I'm sort of following my outlines, but I'm not being too worried. Like if I change it a little bit, that's fine too. I'm just using it as a guideline. Okay, so then I'll put maybe some little claws on there. So now, since I'm working with this brown palette, I think I will start adding some brown. So this squirrel has kind of brown on the arms a bit. I think to get it to stand out, I'm gonna add some yellow. And then on the tail, I'm going to do some fluffy brush strokes. I'm going to mix some purple in. And with the acrylic paint, if something kind of doesn't turn out how you want it, you can just let it dry and then go paint back over it. So I'll do that quite a bit with my own paintings. I'll, you know, do something, let it dry, and then I might just totally paint over it. And if I'm like, okay, I want to change the composition, kind of blend into it while it's still wet. Okay, so now for the background, this one's on kind of a log, so I think I'll sort of use that for a reference, or a tree branch. And then I always like to build up some texture, so I'll take some of this yellow and do some longer brush strokes. And if you want, you can leave a little bit of that paint, leave some of your brush strokes showing. Okay, so I think like a purple around this would look nice. So I'm noticing the ears, I'm kind of losing the ear bit, so I can go back, just outline it a little bit more with some black and make it stand out. And maybe with this hand, I'll go back and do some black on it. And I think I'll get some yellow and do some kind of leafy texture up here, like it's out in a tree. And maybe a little yellow down here just to fill it in. And one final thing, so I'm noticing the feet, I'm losing the definition on the feet. So I'll go back with a little black. think that looks good.
Okay, so I am here working with the brown palette too. Mr. Keith likes to start his out with a drawing. I like to just go in and start painting mine, so either way you want to do it is fine. And I like to put a background color in first. So I'm gonna probably make like a light brown with this yellow here. Maybe even get some more yellow out of the container. Get a good amount on there. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of a good background color for me. So that makes kind of a nice golden background color. And so, since this is the background, I'm going to be painting really thin. So I can, because if you paint your background really thick, then it's hard to paint other stuff on top of it. So I'm just spreading my paint across. If you don't have quite enough paint, you can always get a little bit of water and water it down a bit. And it should make the paint spread further. Okay, so for my painting, I am going to be working on a classic bullfrog. This guy right here. And then I also want to put in some mushrooms. So I like those. So I'm going to do the bullfrog first. And I'm going to start with a bigger brush, getting his basic shape. So let me start with this kind of, I like this purple and yellow mixed together. I really like that kind of a brown. I'm going to start with that. Okay. Move this. Okay. So I need to make sure I have enough room for his whole body before I do any details. There's his eyes, his mouth, his leg will go here. I'm just kind of planning out where everything's gonna go right now before I go into. So now, I can kind of refine my drawing by kind of wiping away some of the extra parts where I put a little bit too much paint. Get it more like I want it to go. So, okay, so at this point I am going to switch down to a smaller brush so I can get some of these details a little better. And like I said, I really like this purple and yellow brown. I'm going to add some regular brown into that too. So I'm going to just start kind of drawing out, giving this frog his like basic colors. Let's see, I might need a dark to kind of give him his smile there. And so since all my colors are wet, I'm just kind of letting all the colors, mix together. Here's his leg. And then you see his long toes. And the front leg here. Toes are a little shorter. Okay. So now I'm going to grab some of this from the side that's a little lighter and do some of his patterns on his body. And then I want to go and get some straight yellow because this part of his mouth is like the lightest part of him and the front of him. And then also I might use it to kind of highlight around his eye to get that shape. And then he has this thing that comes off here, and then he has like another kind of circle on his cheek here. And then he has, you know, a lot of cool like froggy patterns on his back. Here's his other leg coming from behind him. So, and I might use some dark now to just kind of get his shape really outlined good. So these, since we're working in kind of a monochromatic palette, everything's kind of blending in. And that's okay, because when we turn this into, like, he could become, you know, the bark of a tree. And you can kind of see the texture in him. So if I turn him like this and put him in a tree, he would blend in. But then when you look close, you would notice there's a frog there. If I get some of these lines. Okay, so now I'm gonna leave him alone. I may come back to him in a minute and do some more patterns, but I'm gonna go ahead and get my mushroom laid out. So, let's see. I kind of like these two because they show the top and the bottom of the mushroom. So I'm gonna have one coming out from behind him like a pancake. Let's see, I need to hold this down. There. Okay. And then give it some color in the middle, and then maybe some lighter color toward the edge. Let those colors blend a little bit. And then kind of give it a little more definition with this and some shadow around the edge. And you guys see how when you're painting with acrylics and they're still wet, whatever you put in there is going to blend and mix with what's there already. So that gives you a nice, you know, that gives you some nice blended colors. Give it a highlight around the front and back of it a little bit more. It's hard to see because of this glare. Okay, I am gonna, now I'm gonna paint the one that's kind of curved. Its stem is curving back a little bit like this. Just like that. And then you can actually see the inside of the mushroom. So you see a little bit of the top. And then, so I'm gonna give that a little bit of a shadow around those edges. And then I'm gonna come in with a dark brown. Actually, this is a good chance for me to use my tiniest brush. So I'm looking at the pattern here, and it's like, pull my sleeve up. I don't want to get my coat messed up. So, okay. So there's a shadow here, a dark shadow, and then these gills, they're called gills. It's part of the mushroom. They kind of radiate out from the center, almost like a sunburst. So that is going to be a really interesting pattern to paint. And some of them I'm making them a little thicker because this part is more in shadow. So it's going to just have a darker look to it. And then I'm going to come around and do thinner lines where the color is a little brighter. Okay, now I'm going to bring some of this purpley brown into this part. And I'm going to bring it around here too. So it stands out a little better. I'm going back to this to add a little more yellow to the center so it kind of blends in a little better. The acrylics will take a little while to dry, so that gives you some time to work with them. Okay, so now looking at it, maybe a few more little lines in here. Maybe come in with this and get the frog drawn out a little bit better. Get his patterns. Bullfrogs have kind of a pattern going down their back. I don't know if anybody has ever, I know you guys have heard them at night in the summertime making noise, especially after it rains. Some of you may have even caught a bullfrog or seen one hopping around. We used to have one living in our flower bed last summer. And I was just hoping my dog wouldn't notice, and he didn't find him. So, they're really peaceful animals. Okay, so now that I have that done, I'm gonna just do kind of like some abstract mark making with the brown to kind of indicate that he's on some leaves. He's in like the forest. There's leaves around him. But I don't need to go into a lot of detail with that. I mean, you can if you want to go in and draw individual little leaves on the forest floor. That can also look really good. And it doesn't take too long. Oop, that's too much. I got too much black there, so while it's still wet, I take a paper towel and I'm just like, swipe it right off. If you can't get it off right away and it dries, then you just paint over it. So either way, you're good. So let me get a little black. I'm gonna just do some leaf shapes. Coming up close to the frog a little more. So this frog is almost like a hidden picture. Like he's a little hard to see with all the stuff going on around him. Which is kind of good because, he's going to be part of like the bark of a tree, or he might be part of the leaves that are on the ground in the forest in our mural. So, that kind of works out. And then I might even take some dark brown to do some like stones or a little pattern down here. Oop, that was my leaf. Just for some variation, but okay. One last thing. I think I'm gonna outline his back and separate him from that mushroom a little better. But okay, I think I am done with my frog.